Call to order, ladies and
Did you
gentlemen.
figure out how to share? How to share screen?
Do you know how to do it?
Probably.
It's a permission.
Jan, yeah, do you want to help Jan? This, well, first of all, I guess approval of minutes. Welcome new member. That's Bruce.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, there you are, Jan. Jan, you're on.
Yes.
Oh, good. She just got it. Okay, terrific.
Let me turn
Right,
this off.
as you know, we lost our favorite Don Eaton, but we now have our favorite Bruce, who's just joined us, I guess was approved at the last meeting. Oh, Karen, would you, oh, wow. Could you pass the agenda around to Patrick?
Sound off.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Does that work?
Better.
Okay, are we technically competent at the moment? But anyway,
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Thanks.
Bruce, you have 30 seconds to tell us how wonderful you are.
I'm a retired emergency department chief and hospital administrator, and have had a home in Stockbridge for over 30 years. Alternately between being a primary resident and a second homeowner, depending upon where else we were living at the time. I don't know what else you want to hear about me. I don't think you want to hear about my professional career, but I would.
Let's hope we don't need any of your.
Hopefully you don't need any of my professional
talents.
credentials.
Where are you living in town, Bruce?
On Interlake and Cross Road,
Really? Okay.
part of the Beechwood community.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, his
Most of
house
us-
actually connects to Stockbridge Bowl,
Well, that's
which I think
nice.
is phenomenal. I had no idea those properties on Interlake. And-
Yes.
And he's being modest. He was the CEO of a hospital,
Yes,
at least
I
as
was.
administrator. And I think when you look around this room, present, personally accepted, I think this has got one of the most incredible sets of resumes and experience of any board in this town. And it's really just awesome, and welcome to it.
Thank you.
Welcome. We're very, very happy to have you, Bruce.
Thank you. So, I mean, I have, I've, over my career, had a lot of experience working with many, all the community services in the towns in the town where my city where my, and towns, surrounding towns where my hospital was, fire, EMS, public health, very involved with other community, many of the not-for-profit organizations that tried to serve all members of the community, including the less fortunate ones. And so this seemed like an appropriate way for me to participate in Stockbridge.
Well, let's hope we will do something that will benefit the less fortunate in our community, which is our goal. So Bruce, welcome.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you. Could we have a motion to approve? Any comments on the minutes on the excellent job? We have all these outstanding people doing things. Any comments on Liz?
To accept.
Second?
Second,
Oh, wait a minute. Now we have to do.
we have to do the roll call.
Okay, Michaela, you start. You
Hi, Michaela.
have to go, I, Bruce. No, Patrick, you're next.
Aye.
Bruce.
Aye, Bruce.
Yes, I, Randy.
Hi, Liz. Hi, Jan.
Hi, Mark.
Thank you. Unanimous. We are really here today to talk about continuing our conversation about the housing production plan. And Karen, you haven't met Bruce, but I think you know everybody else.
Hi, Bruce. Karen Sonneborg.
Hi.
So nice to see you.
Nice to
Yes.
see you too.
Karen is our consultant and the person putting together the plan for us, and just done our last meeting, which I think you got some small bits with, but not all. We're deep into data, as they say. And I think the goal today is to further polish, and I'd like to open, Karen, with just to echo Patrick's sentiments of the last meeting, that you've done an extraordinary job of pulling together an enormous amount of data. I think my general comment, which and I don't know if you've looked at it or not, Karen, but I took the work that you did. I feel that your slides that you have currently are a little too dense. and that it's too much, and we have some people who've looked at it, that it's too much to put up on a screen.
Yeah, fine. And there've been some revisions and they look great.
So with that general comment, Karen, do you want to lead the discussion? And do you want to go
Who's in
back?
control here? We can,
Well, what I was thinking, Randy, we did some edits. We included comments from pretty much everyone because I sent some edited draft to everyone. Sorry, Bruce, I didn't send it to you.
You can look here.
get a shot tonight.
But
ahead.
really trying to simplify some of the slides so they would be easier to follow. It will require in the community housing discussion, there'd probably be more discussion around each slide than the actual words on the slide. But what I thought we might do tonight was simply run through that quickly
Okay.
because I know you've all seen it before. So, but just it's really critical to articulate at the end of this what we're saying the housing needs are for the community, because that'll be the basis on which we try to then develop what are the housing priorities and what the strategy is going forward. So I think.
Terrific, Jan.
Leading up to that,
Okay. You want to put it up and lead the
Yeah.
discussion?
let me see if I can just share my screen. Might take me a second to find it.
And is this the one that I could access by looking in your email?
I made a couple changes this afternoon after discussion with Karen, so just give me a second and I'll try to get it.
It's called edited.
She did it this afternoon, that's old.
22.
Yes.
Good.
So let's focus on, we want to do the slideshow, so.
You click on it?
Yeah. There it is.
Is there a way to enlarge that or?
He's trying to do.
Oh, I see. Okay. Is the view,
process.
is the view the way to do it? How you view it?
Sometimes you just start the
Yeah.
slideshow.
That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
We should really have some teenagers in this.
I know.
This is not one I use. I always make PDFs.
Play from the start. Here we go.
Finally. Just read the small print.
Okay, so I'll just run through this
Yeah.
very quickly. The first couple of slides basically talk about the purpose of why we're doing a housing production plan. You can see that it's to get updated information, identify what the needs are, and then create strategies for addressing those needs, and to identify specific development opportunities to address those needs and increase new housing funding and financing options.
What about renovation? Is that included?
That would be included in the increased housing funding and financing options.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Because it says new housing, so it sounds like it's
Yes.
new houses.
Good point. Good point.
I might say something about housing production and preservation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really good for this town.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what is the situation right now in Stockbridge? We have 113 affordable housing units, SHI. That exceeds the requirement or the direction for targeting 10% of full-time residents. It creates a safe harbor, which we can talk about in the community meeting and what
Right.
that means
means.
in terms of unwanted development. And it also means that we're eligible for doing the LIP, the Local Initiative Program, which is a friendly 40B. And we can talk about what that means.
You know what, though, I had some questions about using the word eligible. You don't have to be past the 10% to use the friendly 40B. I mean, any community can embrace a developer and apply to the state for the go-ahead to do a friendly 40B. So the word eligible, I was trying to figure out how that might be reworded.
I thought, so just to clarify, I thought that the friendly 40B was only available to people who are over. That's not true. I mean,
Well, if you're over, and you want to do a comprehensive permit application, you have to do it through the friendly 40B process because the developer has to get agreement from the town.
no, but that,
But no, you can be any community with like zero affordable housing and still, with the developer, apply to the state to participate in the LIF.
So basically, it's not a question of eligibility, it's a question of that is our path. If we decide.
Your preference, I mean, you certainly have,
Preference for,
do we get preference?
at this point, it's really if you're to do a comprehensive permit, it's the only way to do it.
Yeah, that's.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like how you word that.
And what is comprehensive permit? Does that mean live? Is that another word for this?
No, comprehensive permit is chapter 40B. So if you're going to use chapter 40B, it's called a comprehensive permit because so instead of applying to all various town entities separately, you submit one kind of application to the zoning board of appeals. It kind of streamlines things. But
But I thought that if you, let's say you're under 10%, I mean, that's a weapon. 40B is a weapon.
No,
Yeah.
40A. Well, no, I'm sorry.
no, it's,
40.
you're under 10%. You're still susceptible to waivers of, overrides of local zoning. The community can, if it doesn't think comprehensive permit application is
Good.
good, it can deny it it can deny it. If you're past the 10% or if you met in other communities, housing production goals, the developer has really no choice but to go through.
The other clarification that we might want to make, and I really think we can do this offline, can make sure that the language is right, is that communities under 10% can be safe harbor communities if they have a plan to get to 10%. So I think we should have to be a little careful using terms
Yeah.
like safe harbor here. For folks who are not immersed in this, I think in general, we should stay away from any jargon we can and say, the state has provided goals of 10% and we've met those goals. That doesn't mean, however, that we can't, further advance the housing needs of the community. There's a lot of concepts here that we could spend a lot of time on that are maybe not as salient as the.
I think that that's a good point, but it's also an opportunity when you go through this planning process to really, educate the community.
Yeah.
So when they hear some of these terms, they know what it means. So it's that balance of not overloading them and confusing people at the same time,
Yeah.
giving them some context.
But to me, this is a really incredibly important point, that when you're over the 10%, I view it as having some protection against
You do.
people doing things you really don't want. You're very vulnerable when you don't have the 10%.
Right, from unwanted overrides of local zoning.
But I want personally, I would suggest we avoid the choice of words like protection and hostile. And, I think what we want to just point out is we have options and flexibility, not so much that, it's friendly versus hostile versus unwanted versus wanted. That starts to put in value judgments that I think we want to just think about. It's just,
Patrick, you are our moral compass.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I got some language that defines some of these terms that I don't know if it could fit on a slide, but it might be. So I kind of define Chapter 40B housing as a program created by the state of Massachusetts, which allows developers to override local zoning laws in order to increase the number of affordable homes in municipalities where less than 10% of the housing is defined as affordable.
Yeah, it's in the plan, it's in the needs assessment. All those definitions are a couple times in the needs assessment.
In Stockbridge, more than 10% of the homes of full-time residents are categorized as affordable, meaning the town is not subject to having a developer impose a project that overrides our zoning bylaws.
yeah, that's great.
Well, we can't put that on a slide.
no, I think you can say that though.
But when you-
It's a talking point.
Yeah, I would say that in the discussion, when you're expanding upon the bullet points, to minimize the jargon and get as basic as you can.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always a risk of professionals knowing their material so well that it can miss the mark when they're trying to explain it to people who don't know what the hell 40B is all about. And we just can't afford to risk losing people as we explain this stuff. I think that's a big
Well, in fact,
challenge.
you might opt to have one of you, like Jan, or split up and have, however, and do the presentations. I'm always happy to do them, and most communities prefer having a consultant do it. But you might want to think about doing it, and, you know, if there are questions arise, I can always be there as a resource. So I just offer it if you would like.
So I have a question that maybe as a newbie, I should, already know the answer to. And I certainly don't want to do anything to shoot ourselves in the foot, but based upon some of the information that Randy had sent me ahead of time that I read, related to the income needs of someone someone would have to rent or buy a property in Stockbridge. How is it that, and given how many people don't meet that threshold, how is it that we actually meet or exceed the 10% threshold for affordable housing if we have all these people that basically aren't earning enough money to?
Because this has to do with, we have 113 units that are on the affordable rolls as far as the state's concerned.
So it's because those are already on the roll as
Right.
affordable housing.
So if you multiply that by 10, if we have.
No, I get that math.
Right.
I
So we
just-
have less than 1,100, so we meet the criteria.
Okay, so it's based upon those units.
Right. And based on the census count of full-time
Okay,
residents.
okay.
And Bruce, the reason that we have them is because the people who ran this town for years and years and years did have some vision and created these units.
No, I get it.
Heaton Court's been here since the 70s, I think, or 80s. And Pine Woods has been here since the early 2000s. And Riverbrook was, I think, originally built in the 50s or 60s. So the town has been visionary. We just, those were the needs when those buildings were built, and they still meet the criteria.
Right.
But we aren't serving the needs of the people who live here right now.
Can I just make a point of order? It's 4:30 and we're on the second slide that we've been through before, and we have Karen today. So I think we should really try to blast through the slides we've already been. And then if anybody doesn't like the words, we can take that offline and try to get to the slides we missed last time while we have our consultant. Just a suggestion.
Okay, so the next slide is, there's been a significant population decline. If you look at the last 30 years, roughly about 25%. This, the diagram is over a longer period of time, but if you look midway through, you can see that it's declined about 25%. We've lost younger residents and gained older ones. There's a significant increase in the median age, up to 60, which is higher than local communities around here. We've also.
Can I just say that slide, we should try to cut down the words. Too many words.
Okay, well, you can make suggestions.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I'll write my name on this one.
Okay. Significant loss of the intergenerational. So what you're seeing, and this is the same that we just mentioned, it's fewer younger people and more older people. And it,
When we're ready to do this, I want to help with the graphics a little bit so that people can actually read the legend and the columns and the values, because I think it's interesting, but unless you can see the age ranges, people aren't going to know what you're talking about. So
Okay.
it needs to be about 5 times bigger.
Well, yeah, it's hard. If you can.
I know how to do it.
Yeah. Because I usually explain what the columns mean, but that does take time.
okay. There's also been an increase in poverty, and I would say also at the high end. So now the income levels are more at both ends of the spectrum, and fewer middle class or fewer middle range.
Just have a quick question. I was asked today, what is the middle category say? Income wise.
It's 35 to 50, and then the
How
second,
many are in that column to the left?
to the left, 93. And
No, I mean, in terms of the current population. I just want to get my percentages. Somebody was asking how I came up with some numbers today, and I just want to make sure I'm getting it right here.
We're on the income distribution?
Yeah. 121, 27, 176, and 1. And what's
The percentages are all in the draft. If you want to, in the
Verbiage.
in the tables.
Again, I think we need this closer to the words you just used, Jan.
Yeah.
That's too dense. And I don't even know what it says, other than your headline. So I think it's just way too dense.
Okay. There has been modest housing growth. If you look at this, the bottom, you can see the 40, which is in red. So over the last 11 years, we've had only 40 housing units added. But what we're also seeing is an increase in the number of full-time owner-occupied and full-time rental, and fewer of the part-time owner/investor. And that may be, you might ask, well, why would that happen? Well, it might have happened because during the pandemic, we have people who decided to move here full-time and not be part-time owners anymore. Or we may have had people who decided to rent their house full-time to someone locally because they weren't going to be here.
Or retired.
Or retired. So that's just an interesting aspect. It also says at the bottom that we have a very low vacancy rate in all of those. So you have, for home ownership, only 1.8% vacancy and 3% for rentals. So if you look at, there's not much on the market right now in terms of sales and in terms of rentals. So it's a very tight market.
Could you go back to that, Jen,
Yeah.
a minute?
One thing,
Go ahead, Patrick.
I find it very difficult. Well, I don't know what other stands for, but there's no way there's 116 vacant units in the town. At least today anyway, maybe there was in 2021, I doubt it. And I think full-time rental, if you back out the 113 units that we have, that would suggest 140 units that are rental.
That's right.
160 units rather. Once again, I think that's maybe extrapolated. I'm pretty sure just from doing the analysis last year on that we have a more like somewhere between 600 and 700 full-time owner occupied. And I can share that data with you if you like.
Yeah.
You know, it's based on the assessors and voting data.
Yeah. So what is the source of this data?
This is all census information.
This is census information.
somewhere was extrapolated, right?
No, well, it was 2021, so it's the census survey information. I mean, there are margins of error in these, but also the rental use include homes that are being rented too. And also this information is always, captured at the time the census was taken to. So it's.
Do we know what the others are? Because as Patrick points out, there's not 116 vacancies.
Yeah.
I don't know what the others would be.
Other includes the seasonal units.
Yeah.
No, those would be part-time.
Oh, part-time?
Yeah. I mean, I personally.
Okay, it's like all vacant units, and they include for sale vacant units, for rental vacant units. Those are all embedded in the census as well. If you look under vacancy characteristics, there are various categories.
We did a lot of analysis on this last year.
Yeah.
For other reasons. And I think that where there's consensus.
Yeah.
Is that when it comes to individually owned properties, backing out the rentals, that give or take, it's somewhere between, it's around 50-50, it might be 45-55. I think there's general consensus out of the 695 units that we have, which is the number that Michael Blay talks about, that it's somewhere around an even split. And I think we can generalize this slide because I think a lot of people will not see this as credible,
Okay, so could you send us the information that you have, Patrick, so we can
Sure.
kind of align that with this? And
This basically says 50/50.
Pretty much.
if you include the vacant
47.
and other. And maybe we need to just have a better definition of that.
Or just, we can just,
Vacant, I can,
Why don't we just group it together? I think the significance is what percentage of our town are full-time residents and what that number is.
yeah, that's what I mean. It's like,
Basically 50%. Yeah.
And just have two lines.
and we've got there's some rental units on Park Street I know of. There's over at the industrial park, and there are the affordable housing units. And that's really, there's a handful of other full-time houses for rent, but obviously in the market around here, folks have not generally gone with full-time rentals, long-term
There
rentals.
are some in town. I
Yeah,
mean,
there are some,
there are a
but-
couple buildings
Yeah.
that do that, but
Right.
their turnover is almost nothing.
Right. That's what I mean. There's some on
Right.
Park or some down,
Right.
well, I think in the draft, not in the presentation, but in the draft needs assessment, the state's going to want to see the census figures. But what I've done in a couple instances, I say, however, the information from local leaders or from the town indicates that the numbers are more likely geared, blank, blank, blank. So we can include both of those. I think that
Good.
it does better inform the housing needs assessment when we have those kinds of general figures. So that's easy to incorporate.
Well, I think in the study, or in the actual plan, you can have all the detail.
Right. I'm not talking about the presentation. I'm talking about the detailed needs assessment.
So are we saying that the 50 loss, the 50 reduction in full-time owner and investor basically are the result of the increases or captured in the increases in full-time renters and full-time owner occupied because of something, let's say, COVID? And people basically that were part-time owners in New York or Boston or whatever that have decided to get out of the city and be in the country where they'd be safer from COVID?
Yeah.
Or
Certainly
they
happens.
have sold their unit and a full-time resident bought it. Could be either of those.
It will be interesting now that we're allegedly past COVID. I have my own feelings about that and opinion about that, to see how this changes over the next year or two.
Right.
Yes.
This same thing is happening all over the Cape too. All this
Oh,
around
the Cape,
fees.
the Cape is,
Yeah.
the Cape's a disaster right now
Yeah.
Yes.
because of that.
It may also be affected by the workforce now has many more people who work remotely, full-time remote work.
Right, well, that was
And so
again,
that
part of the
would open up a lot of
COVID, part of the COVID
But
fallout.
the 2020 census likely wouldn't have captured that. So these 2021 numbers are based on the 2020 census.
No, it's that they look at this 25-year estimate. So they look at 2017 to 2021.
Once again,
Right, but
it's
they
not
couldn't-
based on COVID time.
Right, they couldn't predict COVID and what was going to happen there.
My understanding is that they were doing some of the counts during COVID.
Okay.
The counts were done because they were delayed so much, and they usually come out at a particular time and it was like way delayed because of the challenges in doing the counts during COVID. So there's still some validity.
Jan?
Okay.
you wanna keep going?
Major housing trends. So this is looking at what the affordability gaps might be for different types of housing. And what we've done here is taken the 2022 median price, and these are sales prices for those units. And keep in mind that in the case of the single family, there are only 31 units that were sold. So that's 2% of the total inventory. So that's the 575 is, one might argue, may or may not represent going forward what that is. But just so you're aware, I went on today and looked at what are the houses that are on the market in Stockbridge today, and it would be quite a bit higher than this, I can tell you, for the ones that are on the market right now. And the same is probably true for other units, but this is looking at what the median price was in 2022, what the required income level, assuming that you have 20% down and that you do a mortgage, and what that would require in terms of your income level. And then this is saying what percent of the resident population income is below that level. And you can see there's significant gaps in that. Now, your question, Patrick, was about the two-family, the 366,000. And the answer on that is that it's because you have two incomes, one from the second family that's living in there. So the owner doesn't have to have as high an income to be able to buy that.
No, I get that. But why is it affordable at a median income of 366? It's affordable at a much lower median income.
And that was based on a projected rent of $1,500, and typically underwriting takes about 75%,
Oh.
adding that to income.
Oh, I see.
So that's
Affordable.
what,
Oh, that refers to the price of the house.
that's
Yes,
the house
that's
for
what
the
they could
house.
afford.
Yes.
The only other thing I would point out, and I don't know how hard it is to just do the math or do the analysis, Liz, is of the 31 units sold that year, how many of them were seasonal? Because that still counts as a single.
That
family
does
home.
not
We
come
don't
up
know.
on a
It
sales
does.
thing.
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, if I knew everyone who bought them, I could tell you.
I mean, it might be a good asterisk is all I'm saying.
You'd
Right.
probably come pretty close.
We could
Yeah.
go knock on doors.
Because, obviously that's going to bring the price down.
Right.
The seasonal ones.
Right,
Well,
absolutely.
if you have the addresses, we could look at what's in the assessor's thing
We could.
and see whether it's a Stockbridge address or it's a Florida address.
No, but even
No.
that doesn't tell whether it's seasonal. I'm saying the average price comes down because the three season cottages tend to go for a whole lot less than the winterized
Right,
homes.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just question on the two-family, 414,300, that's the price
Yeah.
those are selling for?
That's based on the median in the assessor's record. So probably the market's going to be a little higher, but I didn't want to kind of just willy-nilly add an incremental
I just,
level, but that's based on assessor's
it
record.
strikes me that to have the two-family be 130,000 less than a condo.
Yeah, but there might only have been one sale. I mean, how many two-family sales were there in 2022?
There are also some very inexpensive condos in town,
Yeah,
extremely.
yeah. Anyway, it makes the two-family look like a great solution.
It
I
is.
just don't know if it's based on not very much information so that it's not as great a solution as it appears. Do you know what I'm saying?
You know what?
Because I imagine the price would be much higher than 414 for a good, for a two-family.
But there's a
Well,
good
actually,
reason
that's where it
two-family
actually-
homes and triple deckers.
on the size.
such starter housing in communities when zoning allowed them. Because of the rental income, brings a first-time home buyers a better shot of being able to afford it.
Totally.
So it is a really affordable
Permit?
housing type.
Patrick, do we have a zoning that permits
Oh, we're-
two-family houses?
We're working on improving it.
Yeah, but do
Very
we,
narrow.
I mean, if I wanted to, could you build?
You can't, the zoning that's on the books and we do allow two families. It requires additional acreage. There are some limitations on it that I think one of the questions coming out of this group should be whether or not we should address that.
Okay.
Hard. I would also, maybe with Patrick's help, there's some really interesting information that those numbers are too hard to, I would think, for a big group to understand. Patrick, is there a way to present that so that it's graphic rather than numbers?
Look, I think that there's two pieces of data here that I think are key, or two lines of data. Single family home, you got to make $150 to afford at 575, which by the way may be too low. And then the second piece is that, two family, while there was only probably one sale in 2022, two family only need to make 62 grand. Yeah, this is a 1 minute slide. And I think for the presentation, that's the key takeaway here, is that maybe a two-family might be a path to, potential affordability for the missing middle, and I think that, we're losing. I wouldn't focus so much on, single family and condos are so close, let's combine them together and just less data and more to the point.
Right.
Yeah.
And you also kill two birds with one
Yeah,
stone.
and they're
Because
close enough.
multifamily,
They're
You've
close
got
enough.
somebody who can afford to buy something and have it their own, but you're also renting to somebody else who needs the rental. So-
Right.
I mean, you're talking about, $30,000 difference in the median price and basically no difference in the required income level.
Right.
So combining them certainly makes it,
We just need to find a better way
Yeah.
to make that, I mean, there's two terrific points in there that you have to study a little too hard to
And,
get.
and the really interesting point, and once again, the 414 isn't going to be a realistic number, but even if you were to raise that to 700,000, a working couple at the sort of, kind of service-oriented jobs or, working as a nurse or a EMT or whatever, could still, even if that required income level was 100,000, it still moves the affordability way, way better, and I think that, it's, you got a family of two with a kid at $1,500 a month. It's the gap between home ownership and being forced to always rent becomes, pretty narrow in that one scenario. Yeah.
Okay. In terms of cost burdens for housing right now, we have about 1 in 3 in town residents who are cost burdened, and about 1 in 8 who are severely cost burdened. And the
Is
cost,
there another word for cost burden? I don't think that's a common,
It is, in the housing field, it is.
right, but we're talking to our people.
Overspending.
Cost burden. What was the phrase they used in the Eagle in that article you had? Was it cost burden?
I just don't think people talk about cost burdened. They don't understand.
Well, you have to define it.
We'll just explain it.
well, we could just say that they're spending more than 30%.
That's right, it's overspending.
Severe is more than 50. If you're spending more than 30,
Yeah.
30 or more than 50, you could just.
So you could just say
Yeah.
1 in 3 spend more than 30% of their income.
That's really clear.
Okay.
1 in 8, more than half. That's kind of sad.
Okay.
I think that number is higher, frankly. I don't know anybody's buying houses at 30% of their income right now.
Well, that's the ongoing cost.
No, that's what I mean. If the banks did that right now, restricted loans to people who are only the cost of, mortgage, insurance and taxes at 30%, there'd be no sales.
Remember, that's 2021 data once again, and interest rates were half of what they are now. So
Right.
that also has an impact.
Yep.
The point we may want to verbally make.
But I think we need to, we might talk to Greylock or somebody and just see what standard they're using, but.
This is the federal, though, and state standard of affordability.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just saying that the standard is fine. It's just that most people are having to spend far more than 30% to buy a house today, young couples.
Oh, yeah.
I happen to have
Yeah.
some children who are just about to buy a house here.
And I
Yeah.
have one who did, and they're just scraping.
They're gonna be stretched very thin.
Yeah.
But they're doing it just to get in.
And assuming they can read.
Assuming those rates,
Yes.
they're all believing that those rates are
Okay.
gonna go back to 3%.
Moving right along, prices have, in the last 20 years, have skyrocketed and incomes have not. So you.
That one you can understand.
You can grow, you can see that. So the housing dynamic is we have slow housing production. Remember, only 40 units in the last 10 years. A continuing imbalance of housing supply and demand drives up costs. We have rising house prices, increasing the affordability gaps. Increasing land value and restrictive zoning means higher price for that the best use of land
We can't close the door.
Get too hot?
Public meetings, the door has to be open. It's a law. It's one of those crazy laws.
Okay.
Oh, I never,
Well, can it be open an inch?
I can close if you want. I'm just saying.
No, well,
No, we don't want to violate any laws, do we? Maybe we could open a window.
and this is, the last two pieces here are important because it means that the increasing land value and the zoning that we have mean that the best use of it is high-priced, single-family development.
Yeah.
Whereas what we need probably is greater diversity in the housing stock.
And we went through these last week too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if they haven't changed too much, I think we should keep just.
And the same with the housing dynamic here, that subsidies are competitive but limited. Lower income residents, including long-term residents, are struggling to remain in the community. We heard that in the resilience study a year or so ago. And older residents would like to stay in their homes.
No, I will contradict myself here. One thing we might want to clarify here and possibly drill down, at least in the discussion area, is the Justice 40 area that we qualify in looks like it's somewhere, it's around energy costs. And there, one of the things that came out at the Congregational Churches forum on Sunday on housing costs was the increase in the building code requirements and what that's doing to costs, especially around solar. That is specifically related to energy costs, and both in terms of retrofitting houses, if people are income qualified, as well as new houses. The Justice 40 will most likely specifically create opportunities around energy because it was the energy cost burden that they singled Stockbridge out at as the thing they qualified for us for. We're still clarifying that, but that's kind of what our town experts, I'm talking about Michael, are telling us the area where we.
Does that mean people can get money?
Well, with federal grant programs, they have to have the program and then you have to find the program and you have to apply for it, not the individual, the town. So, so if there was like something like community block grant for solar conversion for homes in Justice 40, then that's a great one for us to apply to. Because then we might have $1 million to put toward solar conversion,
But does it just have to be for energy related items? Can it be for other?
Maybe our understanding is that Justice 40 may specifically, I would talk to Michael Canales offline, but
That's a big difference.
Like Pittsfield has 5 or 10 they qualified in, and the only one we could find when you click on that navigator is that it was energy related. The energy cost burden for the seniors in Stockbridge is very high, and with our median income, that's what they qualified us.
To talk to Michael, because does it mean
Yeah.
like if you have a housing rehab program and you're putting in new windows and new roofs and whether they all have energy
That's
impacts?
right. Yep.
But there's also the issue of Stockbridge being outside of what a number of other surrounding towns have done with National Grid and whatnot in.
No, we're doing that. We're doing that now.
But
But
that's,
last year when these numbers,
right,
whenever we got.
that's an issue up until now
Yeah, but
with the electricity
Justice
costs.
40 is a federal program.
No, I understand that, but even
Yeah.
something over which we have control,
Yeah.
which is Stockbridge.
Keeping energy costs down is a great idea. No, I was talking about grants related to the federal government.
No, I get it.
Okay, got it.
Because that was one of the other things that I was thinking about with the slide that was talking about the cost burden, is what are the things that we can do, irrespective of what things we can do to keep housing costs down or to get more people into housing, what other things can we do to keep the cost of the rest of their
And at
life?
Thursday's select board meeting, we approved Colonial Power as the aggregator. So just. as
When does that
FYI.
start?
What?
When does that start?
I can't answer that question. I know that we chose the vendor. So the vendor negotiates, there's like windows of every several years where you negotiate the contract. And because of the price discrepancy Bruce is talking about, they weren't, until the contract is up, the utility wasn't taking any new add-ons because everyone jumped in it. So I think that it's up in 2024. But to prepare for that, we did pick a vendor.
Let me have one more Justice 40 question. I'm envisioning getting federal grants to put solar collectors on the roofs of some of the struggling people to lower their energy costs and preserve low-income housing that way. Is that
I mean,
what we're talking about?
you know, but the thing is, it's my understanding, I have no expert at federal grants, that what they have is they have programs that they design, and if you qualify for them, you can apply. We don't design our own grant like requests. What we do is we look for all the programs they have and say, oh, we qualify for that one, and because we're Justice 40, we'll be at the top of the list. So, you know, it's more like kind of, so if there were like a rural electricity cost solar conversion grant program somewhere embedded in the federal government, it might be in 6 different places. Then what you're doing is you're trying to basically then apply to be part of that, as opposed to saying, we've got a specific thing that we want to kind of pitch somebody. I don't think they work like that. It's not like a nonprofit grant.
It's so hard.
Or a foundation.
Right.
Yeah.
Just throw out the barbed wire in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Priority housing needs, and this is where I want to make sure we all are on the same page here. Expand on rental housing, and this is in part because a lot of the federal programs for providing funding focus state and federal focus on rental housing. It also promotes greater housing diversity, expands possibly housing opportunities for young adults and workforce, leverages local investment, allows mixed income housing, and other reasons. So is everyone kind of on board with this aspect of priority housing needs to focus some of our attention on rental housing?
Yes, and I think as part of that, when you talk about young adults and workforce, like, you know, there's the pre-young family young adults. And I think that we should, you know, we can do overlay zones. We can experiment. And one of the things I think we should seriously consider as a way to draw folks here is, you know, tiny house community in a very targeted zone where you're basically targeting single and couples, not necessarily, you know, pre-family, you know, so that in a tiny house community where the typical kind of half 1-2 acre is an experiment is gives way to kind of a more of a community structure around tiny houses and tiny homes, because it's something that's going on all over the country, just not here in Berkshire County yet. And it really addresses the question of, you know, really, you know, very much attracting a much more energized community, you know, that I think would help us compete at a lot of levels. I mean, you know, I hear anecdotally, like Charlie and Barbara's kid, you know, who chose Great Barrington because Stockbridge is so boring. And, you know, and there's just a way to kind of, you know, I don't think Stockbridge is boring, by the way. I'm not endorsing that view. I'm just saying.
Well, it has that image.
Well, that's one person who said it.
Well, I mean, I think when the median age is 60, yes, that's the image. But I think,
Hey,
I mean, but I would say,
Whippersnapper.
Patrick, I think you're totally right. I mean, I think not only does the tiny house movement like happening all over the country, but it can be done beautifully, and it can be done in a way that is environmentally friendly and with low impact. And also, I think another thing that I've mentioned before, but I think is something to think about, is there's not just the Berkshire County house work opportunities, but Albany is has a big workforce, and it's only 40 minutes west. So I think that's something also that we haven't thought about in terms of reaching out there to promote us as an opportunity. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I think our taxes are lower.
Oh, yeah.
So that's also something that might go along with the tiny house idea.
And our taxes are much lower, by the way, than Columbia, than New York State property taxes in general. One other point I'll make is that we're in the phase 4 stage of the sewer plan, which is the expansion plan for the next 20 or 30 years. All right. This is where we're mapping out where sewer might expand. And it's going to be really important that as we talk about recommendations like this, because this only works if you want to create a little density around single homes, it only works if if you want any kind of, any kind of volume whatsoever, it only works if there's water and sewer hookups. And so thinking about kind of the zones where our elected water and sewer representatives are thinking we may have or currently have or expand service, and dovetailing that with what proposals might come out of the planning board, Liz, or this board or the select board, whatever, is that kind of getting the, these boards to work together. That's going to be a really important part of
Is
it.
there a map with the sewer lines?
There sure is. It's right over in Tony's office. And Michael has
It's
it.
online. Can we
I
get
don't
it?
believe it is online, but it could be. We can get it.
One question also on qualifies all units from 40B rental developments for inclusion. SHI, which is subsidized housing inventory, I guess, but nobody knows that in the town. But what is it that qualifies all the units?
I don't know what that is.
What's the thing?
Chapter 40B.
I don't know. Is that going to be that helpful, that line to people in town?
Well, it's a big motivator for a lot of communities. And even those who've surpassed the 10% like to be in a position to maintain a cushion.
I just don't want language that people are going to be like, I don't know what that is,
Well, you explain it when you're going through
I think it's.
presentation.
too.
You don't just
We need to
read.
Clean that up.
But I think, I think to Mark's point, this could be basically affordable : mixed income potential development. Then, rental here could mean 2-family where it's owner occupied rental, or whatever, some kind of rental. You don't want to jump on, you get, what we can think about here is taking these ideas like a tiny house community, which is more likely rental if it's really targeted at people in their early 20s or whatever. Really just kind of talking about 2 or 3 ideas that people understand what they mean, and then talk about on the affordable line, we're talking about, maybe a mixed income community at, Levan or one or another property, who knows? I think.
I was thinking about
3 things.
those potential property to do an expansion of the housing authority would be a natural, rental development.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Well,
We can work on the slide too.
Did you have more, Randy? You wanted to
no,
say?
well, I just, my general comment, it's too dense and I don't think that it communicates almost anything because it's too dense and it's got too many words and people don't understand. So we just need to do editing.
Okay. So there are also, in terms of new housing units, we want to respond to specific needs. And again, I'm sure you'll say there are too many words, so.
I promise not to say that again.
So we want to have starter houses to attract young families and pre-families, I would say, as Patrick pointed out. Have units that are within the 80 to 100% AMI range so that they're eligible for people who want to be in that area. Maybe look at some units for empty nesters that are affordable. And enable children in the community to raise families on their own, so young families.
And these last 2 slides could easily be turned into a graphic where the x-axis is the age of the community, and the y-axis is subsidized versus workforce, or rental versus home ownership. So for example, on home ownership, we might be talking about a small Habitat for Humanity community, on a parcel that we're talking about. That's home ownership, but it's not the same as home. Yeah, but so is a 2-family, which might be kind of more young to like sort of middle age. And I think that we could kind of take this into sort of a scatter graph and really sort of map, across your lifetime and across the types of housing. Here are some things that would fit all of it.
But what we're also saying, which is a good idea, and what we're also saying here, though, is that we want to identify those areas in terms of new housing that we think are responsive to the needs that have been identified
Yeah.
in town.
Right.
So we would only put on that kind of graph, Patrick, the ones where we thought we wanted to pursue some strategy.
Right.
I would argue.
Okay, good.
Okay, any other comments on this?
What's CPA?
Community preservation.
Yeah.
All these initials are dicey.
Yeah.
AMI,
You have to say, you have to spell it
it
out.
makes the lines longer, but
You have to spell it out.
Yeah, I think we need to define all those acronyms.
Or just use the general,
Well, CPA, they should know where the money's coming from,
Yeah, yeah.
because they're gonna have a speak.
Good graphic, we can talk three people through it. Good graphic.
Okay. And then lastly, respond to specific needs. There are some for people with disabilities. There are some for people who have there are no assisted living options for elderly folks in town.
But are we proposing that or why are we pointing it out?
This is, do we want to have as one of our priorities for housing, to meet housing needs, any strategies that might respond to these specific special needs that are out there?
well, there's,
So-
Lennox has, what,
Kimball Farm.
Kimball
and
Farm.
Others.
Kimball, the funny thing about, not funny, but the unusual thing about what we're trying to do is we're this little bitty place, which has a dumbbell population where we've got very young and very old, and many more old. It's a skewed dumbbell. But there are other places around here that do service that community. And is that where we want to go as a community?
Yeah.
Kimball Farms is a very high-end place. I don't know where, we do provide, a Heaton Court is a very unique,
Yes, for lower income.
lower income
There are
people.
income constraints.
Right.
I think that the needs assessment basically is saying that when you're doing new development, it's important to incorporate some handicap accessibility and support services where appropriate in that development. Is going to be the bottom line. Maybe you take out the assisted living options piece because that, brings up like you're going to do a development here. But 21% of residents claim a disability. Certainly there's real unmet need and that should be considered when you're actually doing development.
So I think on this slide, this should be a little bit more of a victory lap. We actually have 24 units for disabled folks via Riverbrook. While it may not be considered disability, we also have, and it's not sort of income challenge, but Austin Riggs provides a number of housing options in town for folks with some special needs around mental health. And clearly, Heaton Court, we do already have a number of units via Heaton Court that are at least age appropriate, and certainly a number of people up there disabled. So I think that maybe the point here is we're going to commit that if we're going to build anything new, we're going to ensure. I kind of think we could say, we've done a good job. And if we build anything new, we're going to make sure that we take into account the needs of this population. Once again, it's kind of,
Yeah, well, the reason that I wanted to highlight today, kind of this discussion is because we need, as a group, we need to decide, whether this is a priority going forward. I would just add, when I took a look at the assessors list and trying to separate those who are residents, i.e. have a Stockbridge address or a West Stockbridge address that their mail's delivered by West Stockbridge, et cetera, and compare those with the second homeowners who would have addresses out, Florida, Los Angeles, wherever. The thing that I was really struck by with the residents who have Stockbridge addresses is how many of the homes are held in trust. It's a huge number. It's a huge number. And so the question is also, what does that say? The resilience study says people want to stay in their homes and, stay in Stockbridge.
It's a living will kind of thing, where you basically
Yeah,
turn
and
over your
so-
kids with the right to
Or
live in.
revocable trust.
So you will probably not be putting that house on the market to sell it.
Right.
You will be trying to stay in it and leave it to your family, which really speaks more to the need, I would argue, on the right-hand side of this, which is finding ways to help improve the housing conditions, whether it's windows, it's energy related, it's, making it accessible.
Yeah.
And trying to identify funding that might be opportunities to enable that kind of renovation, if you will, to take place in those homes is I would argue is potentially a higher priority than trying to build a new Kimball Farms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I just don't see
Right.
that as that,
Yeah.
that fits here.
yeah,
So let's take it out.
yeah, take it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and this might need to be 2 slides.
Maybe
You're
you,
gonna die, these are 2 very different ideas and it's the only side-by-side text slide we have, so we either gotta kind of bring it down to one idea or, make those points and.
maybe you fold the special needs populations, dressing them into the housing, the resources for housing improvements and preservation. And, but then again, any new development, you got to be, I guess there's a rationale for keeping them separate.
Is there any appetite for working with anyone about creating an assisted living option in Stockbridge?
I look at, the owner at 37 Air Lake, and I believe that was the business he was in, was creating assisted living facilities. But his vision for that property, unless it has changed and he hasn't told us, we know he doesn't want to subdivide it, it turns out. He hasn't indicated any interest in that. So, we could look at things, but I think that, there's a million things we could do. I think we've got 3 or 4 ideas that are realistic for this body to take on. It would be great, frankly, if we had it. We don't have nearly enough, but.
It's a growing industry, hugely.
Does any of that deal with affordable housing?
What's that?
Does any of it deal with affordable housing? Those places are all
No.
very
very
expensive
high-end.
or they're nursing homes with Medicaid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even Lennox has a couple of other, assisted living that besides Kemble Farm that are a little bit less on the income scale. But then if you don't qualify, really folks who have to leave their home and are income challenged end up in Pittsfield or Springfield, because that's the only game in town, I think, maybe North Adams too. There's really not much in Western Massachusetts. And obviously somebody, an elderly person, who's income challenged, who can't stay in their home and ends up in Springfield because that's the first unit that's available and it's all based on availability. It brings a whole nother burden in terms of kind of community. It's really
Family
tough.
visitations and
Yeah.
everything else.
Well, people stay in their homes, a lot of those.
Everybody wants to stay in their home.
Until they have to go into skilled nursing.
Yeah.
And then that, instead of assisted living, they go right into skilled nursing, relying on
Yeah.
council and aging and senior center and.
That's why most.
I'd like to look at the other end of the telescope, which is if we're trying to work with our community so that there is housing that is affordable, we want to look at what will attract people that will fill jobs, because the economic vitality of this town is really going forward. It's either going to be a nursing home or we're going to attract young people who can actually bring workforce here so that we can build the community. Because if we don't have jobs, we can't have workers because they don't have housing. So we've got sort of an intertwined problem, which is we're not unique, but I think that the concentration on the fact that we do have an elderly population, but that's not what we're really trying to support. What we're trying to support with affordability is attracting younger people.
Yeah, but when it comes to jobs, I completely agree with with whoever just made the comment about Albany. I mean, a 40-minute commute from downtown Boston is Newton, okay?
That's
And
right.
sometimes it's an hour, depending on what time you leave.
Right, that's right.
I lived there a long time.
Right.
This is something I know.
How about from Weymouth?
Right, that's right, exactly. And so 40-minute commute to like everywhere, Albany East, there are thousands and thousands of jobs at the same commute that like even just, you're not even getting a Metro West to when you get to Newton or
Right.
or Woburn or whatever, so I really feel like in the commuter zone that we're in, I mean, we're 2 hours, 20 minutes of Hartford or less than an hour to Albany. I mean, I think that we need to do a better job of letting people know, it's still.
The real challenge to attracting families is the market.
What can they buy?
If, you build well-designed, mixed income or affordable housing, they will come. Because it's a great place and it's not so far from, Pittsfield and then you were talking about commuting jobs. So I really think it's a matter of trying to make the units affordable.
Well, I just want to reemphasize, if I didn't make my point clear enough, is that I think in terms of an emphasis that we want to have for this group, I think is to try to see if we can create solutions for the need to attract younger people and families here to build this community. Otherwise,
We're going to die out.
well, we'll just die out. Lots of towns do die out because they never attract younger people or they don't, there are not enough economic opportunities. I have he's not as young as they used to be, but they are the people, they are going to stay here, which is really amazing because they only came here for for COVID and they were intending to go back to New York City, but now they've made friends.
Yeah.
And our daughter-in-law has found out that with the 2-year-old child that she has, there are so many opportunities for young children here. It is phenomenal. It's really never in New York City would she ever have a play group every morning. We have someone come to it's embarrassing to me, but we have someone coming to our home from CHP from 12 to 12:30 on Mondays and Fridays, and they go in and they have an art activity with this 2-year-old. And we are not the only family that has this benefit, and there's no charge. There's some amazing things going on here that ought to attract young, they're moving to Lenox. Part of their property is in Lenox and part of it's in Stockbridge, so they're actually going to be living in Stockbridge, or own property in Stockbridge. But there's a lot of things for young families here that, plus the fact there's Montessori and Berkshire Country Day and Muddy Brook and the Lenox schools that have school programs for 3-year-olds. So there's a lot of things that ought to attract young families here.
I think also we
did
should,
a good job of promoting it.
and we should not underestimate the move of a lot of companies now to allow complete or almost complete remote work.
Yeah,
Because there are a lot of families, mine included,
including yours.
who, have moved and they're totally remote and they have good jobs and they're so, if we could attract some young families like that, that would be a very.
There's a lot of them here. Our children have now found this increasing number of people. One of them works for Bloomberg. One of them works for is a lawyer for JP Morgan. They have extraordinary jobs up here, making really good New York money and living at the cost of living here. So.
Yeah, the cost of, as problematic as the housing prices that we put up are here, that same house in Newton or New York or, Westport or any place else would be double to triple that.
Add $1 million.
And
$25,000 property taxes.
There you go.
$25,000 property taxes.
Yeah.
And there's lots of things to offer here for the kids, but going back to a comment that Patrick made before, and while I don't think Stockbridge is boring, but I've heard from my oldest, who lives in Manhattan and frequently, goes to visit friends in the Hamptons, and they tell me all the things that they have, all the activities that they have to do for their kids. The farming communities that basically have, these all-day events and whatnot, and then they come up here and they're like struggling to find something to do with their kids.
We have
And
a swing set.
what's that?
We have a swing set.
I know, I have a swing set in the backyard and a trampoline too, but still, they get a little tired of that after a while,
Bruce,
but
they aren't
All right,
looking,
but guys, we got.
no, I know.
really, there's a lot here.
There
that
is a lot to
really-
do, but sometimes, my daughter was just talking about going on a train ride, but it's 40 minutes away, that they, to take the kids on July 2nd. But I just think we need to do a better job of advertising and marketing that so that people know exactly what's here and
They should
available.
go to Lenox. There's a train right in Lenox.
I know.
Takes you cool on a ride.
So I think one of the issues for us as a group, though, is this identifies a number of things that Karen has identified coming out of the housing needs as potential priorities, and we need to prioritize those.
Yes.
In terms of, are those priorities we want to pursue, or are they are needs, but they're probably not going to be the top three priorities in our housing production plan. And
What is a barrier-free rent? What is a barrier-free rent unit?
Barrier-free rent unit?
A barrier-free unit.
Handicapped accessible.
What's that?
Handicapped accessible.
Okay.
Does that mean he has a
Oh,
ramp?
I'm sorry. It's under the auspices.
Special needs.
Disability.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it has a handicapped bathroom.
No, I get it now.
so I guess one of the things that I would say I would still like to see be one of the priorities we try to look at is identifying some kind of potential funding sources that would allow for renovations
Yeah.
But that's a strategy.
of existing homes.
But that's in the strategies part too, right?
Okay, but I'm saying respond to some of these in terms of major issues cited in the Resilience Housing Initiative and so on, of being able to stay in their homes.
So it's like need resources.
Yeah. But that's really, I don't know if anyone else feels that way.
That's pretty important.
Well, I had emailed Rennie about the article that was in the paper about the state's Massachusetts Senate's $55.5 billion sum of money that's available for, a variety of things related to affordable housing, and that there may be something in there that we can tap into as a funding source. 55.5 billion and a lot of.
Billion.
What's that?
Million. You said billion.
It is billion.
Is this the
State's
climate?
doing 55 billion? No.
Let me double check that.
It's million. It's
Billions.
It was million?
Oh, yeah.
They
If it
wouldn't
was
give us.
millions, we'd have no problem.
Is this the climate bank that you're talking about?
Nope.
No, this is,
$55.9 billion budget proposal.
That's the whole budget.
Includes earmarks,
That's the whole state budget.
includes earmarks for Berkshire County. Yes, that's correct. It's a whole budget.
I thought it was
There's a
housing, but no, it's the whole budget. Okay.
Actually, in the end of the needs assessment, there is a description of housing regulations and resources that describe a whole range of housing subsidy and finance programs that can be tapped. And when we get to the strategies piece, we're going to try to be matching up some of those resources to particular strategies.
But for this board, the one question that comes out of it is, how do we approach grant research and writing? So we're going to need to figure out, because unlike Lennox as a planner, Glenn is awesome. Wish we could share her, but we can't. We've got slightly bigger towns around us have planners and grant writers. And we're going to need to not make this nice to have. We're going to need to figure out how we divvy that up and whether we need a resource, and because everything we're talking about is of course true, but unless somebody researches and finds and applies for the grants, none of it does any good.
We use our funding to have get a grant writer?
My point is, we got to talk about.
Right, yeah. The one thing you need though, to track all this funding is a project.
Yeah.
So if you have a project, the developer is going to most likely, take it on themselves, the ability of kind of applying for various forms of financing, loans, grants, or whatever. And that's where, grant making is useful, but that's where you're going to really utilize the resources.
Yeah, but also, as we look at, block grant kind of stuff,
Yeah.
for the, how, that's really, that might be partnering with an
That's right.
energy, a new energy company who designs a program for us, and then we are looking to fund that. I'm just saying, yeah.
Yep. CDBG is kind of a different animal if you're
Yeah.
new programs versus projects.
Right.
Okay, any other things on these two areas that you would say we want to highlight in terms of our priority housing needs?
I just think that our number one priority is for younger families and workforce.
Okay.
Myself. I mean, I know the data might lead us in another direction, but I think that if we're going to create, to me, one of the goals is how do we create Stockbridge as a more diverse and energetic community with diversity of age and income.
But Randy, as we look at goals are, we could have a 25-year goal, we could have a 5-year goal, and we could have a 10-year goal. And in the short term, let's bear in mind that the average age is 60. And, I think that one federal study one nationwide study I showed said 12.5% of folks won't be able to age in place. They'll need to downsize. They won't need to be in assisted living, but they'll need to downsize. So that math is pretty easy around here. It's about 1,000 people over 60. 12.5% of that's 125 people. And I don't necessarily just want to write off the needs of that 125 people. And that's where, things like our ADU or, a smaller house or some place to go that is,
I don't think we're in conflict because an ADU means you're attracting younger people, I think.
No, it
Or else
doesn't.
you,
No, it doesn't. I don't agree with that at all.
well, either that or
can.
you're putting the older residents who wants to downsize is in the ADU.
Right,
Only if you pass a law that you can't rent it as a VRBO.
right.
I mean,
But now you're getting to, if we're creating another unit though of housing, and then you're talking about regulations that create that housing goes to the target audience that we want it to go.
And Nancy, I think the question is, in certain instances, if you're looking at, young family affordability, for example, letting them have options of how to rent it might, as a policy, make sense. But in general, the appetite for kind of, creating housing just to turn it into, short-term rentals is going to be low. You're absolutely right. This is a really hard one to figure out. And we've
I mean, if
wrestled with it already.
we live next to somebody who has moved out of his family farmhouse into his renovated garage and rents out there are people who are doing this now without any regulations. I mean,
A lot of
there's,
regulations are just something don't follow.
well, there's tons of people that don't follow. I mean, it just seems to happen. And, if somebody applied to build an ADU, then, that might be a different thing. But people have existing buildings and they convert them and nobody says anything.
So, would those be grandfathered in?
I mean, look, I have no idea who we're talking about. I would rather we don't get.
Right, no,
No, I don't want to talk about.
No, I get it.
I'm just giving examples of people I know.
The process you're supposed to go through is you're supposed to get an occupancy permit from the building inspector and,
Yeah.
and so there's some subtlety there, but, we're investing in ways to track things like short-term rentals so that we'll have a better insight into what's going on. And,
Yeah.
I think that it starts with gentle encouragement to make sure, people are, you look at, there's a lot of issues here. Yeah.
As just a member of the public, and I'm interested in this subject, I just have to say one thing. There hasn't been any mention of the zoning laws in Boston, in Stockbridge. Yeah.
Those are in the strategies. That's the next section. So this is
Okay.
a housing needs assessment. So we establish, priority needs, and then the strategies are supposed to
Well,
address
this
those
group doesn't
needs.
seem, just as an observer, this group seems to be completely no agreement on what your priorities are. I mean, young people renovating for old people.
Well, we don't have, well, I am hearing, see if I'm wrong. I mean, on rentals still being a priority, family rentals, but still having some ability for seniors to downsize. And then we have some need to attract families as part of first-time home buyers, so we need some starter housing. We need some, still need some potential home units for downsizing, again, maybe condos type of thing too, so different tenures. The question comes on kind of the relative kind of balance of those issues.
Okay, so
I'm
I
hearing
get that,
some,
but yeah, I could see that, okay, here are the things we need. And then to make that happen, to attract people to actually build those things,
That's a strategy.
then you need to change the.
That's the strategy.
that's exactly
So you can
right.
have cluster
That's right.
housing in Stockbridge.
You need the assessment
Like
first.
That's right.
The, third rail when.
That's
it was
right.
Brought up before. So, I mean, I just want to point out, you have to change a lot of cultural beliefs in town. The
Yeah,
way you present it is going to be huge. The way you sell this, and there's so much resistance to the idea. I just can hear people's voices like, we don't want this to be, a suburban community. I mean, there's huge things to overcome. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, thank you.
So it's really important to,
None of this is easy.
no, it's really going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'll shut up.
Well, I think,
No, good.
I appreciate your comments.
I do think that there's an observation that the mayor's making. I don't, is that English? I'm not even sure. We regularly win awards for being one of the most beautiful small towns in America. And we've got, in our borders, we have Tanglewood and the Morocco Museum. We have some of the premier cultural institutions, certainly in Massachusetts or, New England, and some might argue even in the country. We're doing a lot of things right. But I think that where we need to focus our energy is on the contours of this community, the people's needs, so that the community is able to flourish in the midst of this. It would take a tremendously boneheaded effort to screw up how beautiful this town is. And it would take a tremendously boneheaded effort to drive away our cultural institutions. I cannot even imagine what it would take to do that. And I think to your point about the sort of fears, and I think sometimes people are afraid of a little bit of change, and bring them along
Big
is
time.
important. But my God, we're not talking about building 1,000 units. We're talking about, if we're lucky, getting 5 or 10 or 15 ADUs built in the next 5 years. That's what happened in Lennox and Great Barrington when they passed it. We'll be lucky if we can add 50 affordable housing units in the next 10 years. All right, these projects take a long time, and nothing is going to change the character of this community in terms of how it looks. But in that 10 years, if we don't do something, the character of the contours of the human community is going to vastly change. And that is, I think, the point that is a takeaway point of this entire exercise is let's focus on people. And if somebody doesn't like it, well, there's an election every year. They can,
Well, when you say
Something else.
focus on people, I get, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the people who are here are old.
But,
Hasn't always been, though.
I got a book.
No, I know, but that was a different time. It was a different.
I got a book. Give us a book. It's like this thick when you're elected to my board, and it's the guidebook to being a selectman. And one of the things in that is it's your job to think about the long-term health and direction of the community. And we're talking about trends over the next 20 to 30 years in this exercise. And I get, I think we have to take a human and empathetic approach to the needs of our elderly, but recognize that part of our job is to plan. The last master plan we did was 1996, 27 years ago. Okay. So we're doing planning exercise now that might last for 25 years. And part of that is going to be thinking about sort of, I'm 60. If I live till 80, I'll be lucky. I used to see my health record. What are we going to do after I'm gone? that's what we're kind of thinking about here is not just the 2 to 5 year timeframe, but we're thinking about,
Well,
thinking about.
maybe you do need a master plan to.
Well, that's, I brought it up 2 weeks ago at the select board. I'm gonna try to get it done next year. There's been some resistance because people are afraid. Once again, some people feel like one side will, it'll be dominated by one side or the other. So the idea is we're gonna do the open space plan this year and this plan. And if the board supports it, select board or planning board both, roll that into a master plan process for 2024. And we absolutely need a master plan, in my opinion.
I think it's just the whole concept of what do you want the town to be, but then tempered with a realistic picture of what's really happening. Because
What is the town to be
when
the
I
same?
listen to Randy and, I'm sorry, it's Bruce, talk about attracting young people, you're talking about young people with resources, young people with New York jobs. That isn't who we're talking about helping, I don't think. We're talking about firemen and EMTs and nurses and teachers who don't have that kind of.
I think you're talking about both here. I don't think it's just one thing.
Really?
Yeah,
I do too.
No, absolutely.
We're talking about,
The Affordable Housing Trust, it's not about,
But we're talking about a housing production plan for the town.
okay, so the housing production
Overall.
plan is not the affordable housing.
Right.
It's
It incorporates
The
it.
whole thing.
The market's going to take care of itself. You're right. Two of the most beautiful, what will effectively be the highest assessed properties in town next year when they're finished building are both being built by people in their late 30s, early 40s. We're going to attract, not everybody who's young is poor. It's good. It's okay to attract, the next generation. Look at,
And they've
when
always.
we're dead and gone, the younger people are going to buy these houses, okay? Whether they're, kind of.
and it's revenue, and it's revenue for the town,
Yeah, it's
in
great.
terms of the tax burden.
I was confused because I thought this was about affordable housing.
We're-
Now you're saying this
That's
is
it.
about
This is housing production.
every kind of house.
Every kind of.
Right.
And
Now
also,
you're taking on a
It's a piece of it.
strategic plan for all kinds of levels of
Right,
housing.
yes.
But we're not going to.
We're looking at the.
But the town isn't going to regulate, if somebody wants to buy 20 acres or 2 acres on the lake and build a $2 million house, we're not above that. We're not regulating that. That's private property. People have the right to build what they want. When they build it out a little nicer, you're right, we get extra tax revenue. All that's good. That market housing is not what this is about, to your point. You're absolutely right, that's true. We're going to focus on affordable and workforce housing because that is the mission of this Affordable Housing Trust Fund, not worrying. The market housing, well, those dynamics play out in their own way, and that's not a negative or positive. It's just, it's okay.
Right, but
Yeah.
so I'm
Yeah.
still confused about.
We're still figuring it out too.
But Patrick, we may have a situation where we'd want to have a mixed use development, which may have some.
Mixed
you know,
income.
Mixed income,
Of course, you up to 30%
we-
can be mixed,
yeah.
and still qualify for these types of things.
And also remember, just because people have money doesn't mean they don't volunteer. Because there are a lot of young people who say, this is my town, I care for it, I'll be an EMT, I'll be a fireman.
Oh, I'm not saying they don't. What I'm saying is, just on Sunday, the woman who's the head of Berkshire Housing said, don't forget when you're looking at affordable housing to build a community, a mixed income community. It's not going to happen next year or the year after.
Right.
And you're not going to be able to raise it with CPC funds. This is attracting a major developer and people who will partner with.
Right.
We've
And
already
she's-
done with Umpqua. Okay, we're already in conversations around these exact topics. Yeah, you look at the landscape in town, you've got one or two properties that could be delivered, ready to go, as she said, it was like, cleared. You've got some properties that lend themselves to a smaller kind of Habitat for Humanity type of approach. You've got Elm Court, which likely will be subject, if the Attorney General passes it, to the residential inclusionary bylaw. You've got 37 Interlaken, which likely won't. That's the one that requires participation in affordable housing. 37 Interlaken won't be required to unless as part of the special permit process, the select board requires them to, because we're the permitting authority. So there's a landscape of opportunity here to look at these issues, and each one is going to have a little bit of unique, and we're going to have to kind of map some of these goals to like the facts on the ground kind of thing. But, I think we kind of got this, I think we got at least a gut sense of where we're going.
The direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
And we
I
each
think
will
this
have,
has been a very good conversation, at least I think so, because as everybody
Janet's been excellent.
kind of weighing in, and I'm sure we're not done.
Nope.
We'll have a lot more. And then we'll have to talk about strategies at some point in the future and so on.
We do not have another meeting planned until the workshop on the 17th of July.
Right.
And the 4th of July is coming up
Yes.
immediately. I still think this presentation needs a lot of work.
Okay.
How do you think, Jen, that we can accomplish that?
Well, if you have a little bit of time and could weigh in on some of the slides, that would be helpful. I think toward the end, I'll try to work with Karen to streamline the priority needs to kind of follow this conversation a little more. And then I think I can work also on trying to streamline some of the
Are
other
you
ones.
going to be
as
up
well.
here? Are you going,
I'm going to be up here periodically.
but like this next week or the 4th? Are you here on the 4th?
I'm here next Thursday through the following Tuesday or so.
Who's got a little bit of time between now and, let's say, the week of July 4th to work on this presentation? I know I do.
I do.
Yeah, I do.
I do.
Mark? Yes.
We can coordinate stuff, but I
Yeah.
look over the slides.
The reason I bring it up is, our work as we work in committees, it can be a subcommittee, but it has to take place in the light of day. So what I would suggest is we, because more than a quorum has indicated wanting to give feedback, I think that we should give our feedback to Jan, but then have a meeting to discuss that feedback and what comes out of it sometime or in the week that follows July 4th. What is July 4th? What day of the week?
Tuesday.
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 So that between the 5th and the 12th, I think we really want to kind
Have
of
another.
think about like reviewing something actually itself.
How many of
Or
us?
sometime in there.
How many of us can come and talk without being a quorum? Three?
Well, if even three of us come, the planning board, I think got into an issue, and I don't know that it was fair, but they did around a subcommittee of three who were working on the open space program a few years ago. I don't want to fall into that. So
Okay.
even if it's 3 or 4 of us are going to work together, out of 7, it couldn't be more than 3. Well, 4 could be a subcommittee, who knows? My point is just either if it's 4, we're going to show up, we should have a meeting of this board because then there's a quorum. And if we think it's less than 4, we should create a subcommittee, vote a subcommittee right now and make sure that if we're meeting that it's in public. Because that's kind of the way the rules go.
Could we say we might have another get together for an hour? On the 6th, which is next Thursday. And in the meantime, no. Or maybe the 7th, Friday. I know that's a weekend.
I can do,
Up to you, I'll do whatever.
I could do the 5th. I can't do this.
I can't, well, I could do the 5th on Zoom, but not in person.
The 7th?
That's fine.
Friday, the 7th?
How about not
Want to
a
make it early?
Yeah.
Can we do
How about
it
not a 4?
Yeah, not a 4
Can we
o'clock.
make it 3
Okay.
earlier?
2,
2?
Or how about the morning? Is the morning bad for
Morning?
people?
Morning's fine.
10 o'clock?
Okay. That's
Let's
okay.
just get it done so that people can get on with their weekend.
What are we doing, the 7th at 10?
7th
Or
and-
let's-
That, anybody against Mark or your
Good with me.
silence's agreement?
Good with me.
Am?
Okay. Oh, we don't have Michaela.
Yeah.
have to-
In fact, I'm not even free. I've got 2 other board meetings one in the afternoon at 3. So in the morning is way
10
better.
o'clock,
10 o'clock.
10
Friday.
o'clock.
7th. Okay.
Okay, and in the meantime, if you all could get me your comments on edits, I'll try to put those all together.
Sounds good.
Talking with Karen
No,
about them. And then what I should do is send it out, another version out to everyone that you can read through and have a final look before our meeting next Friday,
So we should get our edits,
Not next Friday, it's
a week from Friday.
so we should get our edits to you by a certain date.
let's, the edits due then. when, Jan?
As soon as possible.
Well, I would say,
You're going to do this as a Google Doc so that we can see everybody's comments?
Well, you'll send the PowerPoint, won't you?
yeah,
Send our comments in and then you do a PowerPoint and tell us, send that out.
I can try to figure out how to,
If you do this as a Google Doc, then everybody can basically
Do
put
it
their
right
comments in and track comments from everybody. So
is
we can
Google,
all see everybody else's
Can you do
comments.
PowerPoint on,
No, Sheets is,
Well, the PowerPoint is just fixed.
right.
Whereas a Google Doc, if you have the PowerPoint in a Google Doc, then we can, everybody can put their comments in. But
all right, Bruce, you might have to give me a tutorial on Google Doc.
Yeah, we
I
have
haven't used it
a
before.
Presentation.
yeah,
talk about her edits.
yeah, how about another
Before
approach?
the seventh meeting.
How about everybody gets
Yeah, I'm
whatever
gonna-
you have out of
gonna do
coming
the
out of
charts,
this
right.
meeting?
I'm.
Okay, so you send it to everybody,
Yes,
each
When
person.
it comes to illustrating,
I think
that stuff, I'm pretty good.
assign different
I'm gonna
seats.
help make the charts more,
Not you.
two, or if we need it.
Do that, and like,
I suppose we could.
just as another approach, whatever the document looks like coming out of this meeting, Jan is going to send to everybody.
Okay.
What we had today.
Okay,
We
and
differentiate between the talking points for the slide and what is actually on the slide. It's basically, there's a narrative of the words that the presenter is going to give, and then there is the cool looking graphics that make the point. And there's really two parts of this that we should kind of, we don't have to write out a script, but you want to kind of,
Well, what we can do is in PowerPoint, as you know, you have notes.
yeah, I know.
So you can just do the slide and then the comments in the notes. So that,
right, but the, one way is to send it out and Jan assign, there's 19 slides, I think, aren't there?
yes,
There are 19 slides and there's 7, so let's say 6, because Michaela probably, or 7, say the 7, that's 2 and a bit. Everybody gets 2 or 3 slides to edit.
that's fine with me if that's,
Send me 3.
Some get 3, but Jan will make the decision who gets what.
I'm just going to start alphabetically and assign you what your assignment is.
Right, and so therefore, your time would be limited. And if you want to take on any other slides that aren't assigned to you, then just send it back to Jan and she'll collate it.
Yes, I will.
And if you want to work on slides that aren't assigned to you,
You can send me your
send,
comments.
send,
You
send,
can send me your comments on those.
you can send comments on anything. You're responsible for whatever Jan tells you you're responsible for.
You be the.
So,
Is that an agreement?
Sure.
everything on our
Mr.
agenda.
Adjourn?
So may I just say, Patty, you asked if we could post this, and I told you earlier today, probably we would be doing that after this meeting, but as you can see, we're going to work on it some more. So it will be probably next week before we.
I think Patty's got her hand up. Do you want to say something, Patty?
Oh, I just wanted to, Janet, thank you for that. I just wanted to chime in. It's called Google Slides and it's genius for collaboration, just like Google Docs, and it might save you all some time. Just FYI.
Can you save a PowerPoint as a Google slide?
Yep, you can import it and export it. So once you guys collaborate, you could then re-export it as a PowerPoint presentation. But while you're collaborating, everyone would see everyone's comments.
Okay, I'll see if I
That
can,
is the next generation idea.
That sounds good.
I will see if I can.
Thank you, Patty, for that.
Janet, I'm sending it to you right now in email. I'm sending you a link.
Perfect, thank you, Patty.
Okay. That's great.
See,
Thank you, Patty.
See, this is the wonderful thing about this group. You learn new things all the way along.
Absolutely. All right. Anybody else got any 2 cents they'd like to add? Or you're broke at this point?
Second.
To adjourn.
Second.
Thanks, folks.
All those in favor, touch. I think we have unanimous.